Hi everyone, it's the Gossip Guy, and today I want to introduce you to a recently announced project within the Hedera Hashgraph ecosystem. But before we get started, picture this. You're the CEO of a company planning to launch its first decentralized application. You've spent months perfecting the product, its underlying smart contract, and millions of dollars in development costs, all made possible by a widely publicized ICO. You've now just launched your dApp. Users are flocking to it. Your daily average users' metrics are off the charts. However, that request for funds that you programmed into your smart contract actually turns out to be a push of funds, all thanks to a bug that your developers completely overlooked. Unfortunately, this is not an imaginary scenario. In 2017 alone, an estimated $500 million in value was lost, all thanks to flawed or incorrectly executed smart contracts. Pretty scary, and just imagine what enterprises looking to develop on top of public distributed ledgers have to think about that too. So with all that being said, I want to introduce you to Sagewise, a dispute resolution platform ultimately trying to build a safety net for smart contracts. Recently, Sagewise announced their plans to use and support the Hedera Hashgraph platform. So to gather further insights, I had the opportunity to catch up with co-founders Amy Wan and Dan Rice to learn more about Sagewise. So welcome, Amy and Dan, to the show. I guess before we dive into Sagewise, do you mind sharing a brief introduction of who you are and your roles within the company?
Sure. Well, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Amy Wan. I am co-founder and CEO of Ssagewise. I am actually an attorney by training, a securities attorney actually, and I started my career in the federal government, then went into startups, specifically real estate crowdfunding, and was partner at a law firm. And basically, I had started a legal technology company, but in early 2017, I basically kept having a lot of people just keep calling me saying, hey, be our attorney for our ICO. And I declined all of them as clients, but I was watching the ICO industry, and basically, something strange was happening, which was, spring and summer of 2017, basically every other ICO was getting hacked for $2 or $3 or $7 million. And the founders would sit there, shrug their shoulders, and be like, oops, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And the cryptocurrency investors would say, oh, well, that's just the way blockchain works. And I thought, man, this is crazy. Blockchain will never take off if people are just randomly losing value. So I called up Dan. He was, probably the second person I talked to. And I said, I think this industry needs dispute resolution infrastructure. And he agreed, and we started working together. Dan, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a co-founder and chief technology officer at Sagewise. My background is computer engineering, and I've actually built over 20 products in my career. Been working in the industry for a long time. And in 2014, I started a group in Los Angeles called the Bitcoin Developers Los Angeles Meetup, in order to focus just on the development side of kind of blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. And the most recent project before this, I was working as CTO for a portfolio management company for traditional investments. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about risk. And that kind of plays highly into what we're doing now. I think I was really concerned when the first Turing complete smart contract platforms launched, because I thought, I've hardly ever written perfect code as a computer engineer, computer scientist, and putting developers in the control of millions and millions and potentially billions of dollars,
right,
is dangerous. So that's kind of my side of where we got started and why I was on the same page as Amy when she called me to start talking about this project.
Well, thank you both for those introductions. So I guess this brings me to my first question. With the shortcomings of Solidity and some of the immutability of transactions on public distributed ledgers, what are some of the general risks developers encounter when building smart contracts, and how might this be discouraging enterprises from further adopting DLT technologies?
Sure. So smart contracts may not be smart, and they don't even have to be contracts, but really, smart contracts are just if-then statements written in code. If you ask me, right, we often hear the the phrase code is law. But if you say that to an attorney, my response though is code is not law. Law is law. Code and any language are merely mediums of communicating intent. And so when you look at smart contracts, I think the downside is that they are overly rigid, right? So, code is very static, but human beings, human situation, and human creativity, those are not. And so if you're looking at the risks of smart contracts, you see a wide variety of things, everything from coding bugs to security vulnerabilities to the inability to amend, modify, terminate a smart contract, or in technology speak, upgrading or evolving a smart contract. And then what happens if, the smart contract does execute, but that's not what the parties wanted or intended. So then you've got a dispute, right? And so there's basically a large number of things that can go wrong with a smart contract. We're basically trying to create a safety net to basically, bring a little bit of humanity back to smart contracts in the blockchain, so that parties can really achieve their true contractual intent.
I think the other side of this is that if you are going to put a safety net into smart contracts, I think the big concern what others have with what we're doing when they hear about it is, aren't you destroying what smart contracts are about? You're inserting humans back into it potentially. Doesn't that destroy the decentralization properties? It doesn't have to, and there can be limits to how much power humans can have built in. So a lot of what we're arguing for is you've got these very centralized systems on one side, and then you've got these highly decentralized efforts on the other side that are having issues. We actually see bugs and issues all the time. I mean, news articles about Bancor losing a whole bunch of money or whatever. There's always some story out there that's happening like that we can see. And I always say, if human banks, like if my bank actually used smart contracts today and I had to interact with them that way, I'm pretty sure I would have lost my money by now, and I'd be banging on their door and they'd be saying, sorry, that's just the way it works here. So I think for us, we're looking for a good middle ground between the two things, and that's where enterprises come in. We really think that enterprises, I mean, if I'm the CEO of a big enterprise, my biggest concern is I don't want to lose all of my company's money on, that's a way to get fired as a CEO, is allowing that to happen on my watch. So that's great if, smart contracts can give me a 25% efficiency increase in the company or something like that. But if it's at the risk of possibly losing all of our money, then, so we're trying to create a balance there. And we think there can be controls where governance can be placed over individual smart contracts that are not necessarily completely centralizing, but also provide layers of protection when something occurs that you didn't expect.
Well, thank you both for sharing those insights. And I guess this is kind of a good segue into my next question, and I guess our focus for today. What is Ssagewise, and how are you guys developing a smart contract safety net?
Sure. So, Sagewise's mission is to basically bring transactional confidence and certainty into the blockchain ecosystem, because humans and businesses will not transact unless they actually have transactional confidence or certainty, right? Kind of like in the early internet, once upon a time, people were really afraid of buying things online. And it wasn't really until, Alibaba and PayPal and Amazon put into place guarantees and reputation systems and dispute resolution mechanisms that now people feel okay buying things online because you're relatively confident about what's going to happen. Same thing with Sagewise. We're bringing that into the blockchain ecosystem. So we're building dispute resolution infrastructure. And what that means is, it basically starts with a monitoring and notification service, because right now, a lot of people don't even know what's happening with their smart contract or how it's going to be executing. That paired with our SDK. Now, our SDK is basically like an arbitration clause in code, right? You copy it, you paste it into your smart contract, and to the extent that your smart contract is about to execute in a way that the parties don't intend, you have the ability to freeze execution of the smart contract. And that gives you the luxury of time to do whatever it is you need to do to fix that execution, whether it is, patching up a security vulnerability, fixing up a coding error, or even amending or terminating the smart contract or self-resolving a dispute. Now, to the extent the parties have a dispute that they can't resolve themselves, they go into the next part of our infrastructure, which is basically a dispute resolution marketplace. And it's a marketplace because dispute resolution is a nuanced thing, and it's not one size fits all, right? You have to look at what is the approximate disputed amount, whether or not there are any sensitivities to the parties, how you resolve a $5 bar bet is very different from how you resolve a $5 million enterprise dispute. And at the very end, there are basically collections and enforcement tools.
Great. So now that we've established an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish with Ssagewise, I guess you guys mind sharing with us as far as how far along you guys are in the development of the Ssagewise platform?
So first product we launched was a contract canary. We launched that actually very beginning of the year privately to some partners that we have. And later in April, we launched the first version of the MVP of the SDK, which was a really stripped down version of it to kind of show how it works a little bit. And that's actually available on our website. It's also available on GitHub. And we're looking to launch the full platform in the fall. So we'll be launching a beta here in the next few months and looking to bring on early partners, obviously, to use that.
So thank you for the overview of your product. So I guess this brings me to my next topic. I know that you guys have been building Ssagewise on another public distributed ledger. However, I've heard you've recently announced your plans to use Hedera Hashgraph. I guess why did you decide to also use Hedera Hashgraph, and I guess what are some of the benefits of doing so?
So we tend to be really agnostic about what smart contract platforms we're using. I think our main focus is to be where the users are. So we focus on Ethereum initially because that was and currently is the most popular smart contract platform I think that's out there. And for us, I think we ran into some scalability issues. Obviously, I don't think any large transaction volume application can really consider the Ethereum platform as it is now because it has a very limited amount of bandwidth, and it also has variable transaction fees that are extremely high in a lot of cases. So one of the things that we were looking at with secondary platforms is, first of all, Hashgraph has the EVM compatibility layer, so we can actually use a lot of the same code that we've written for Ethereum, but we can also extend it with the additional functionality of improved performance. So there's actually features that we're not building on Ethereum because they're too gas expensive, but we will be able to build on top of Hashgraph. And then also just looking at who's going to be using the platform is important to us, and we think that Hashgraph kind of has a more of a corporate enterprise side where they're trying to go. That's definitely a customer space that we're interested in, and a lot of the companies we're talking to are in that space. So it seemed like a natural crossover for us. And then also being able to use the file system features that Hashgraph has could be an added benefit to our platform and the way we implement it on the platform.
Oh, and as a clarification point for the audience, in addition to Hedera Hashgraph, you're also looking to support smart contracts written on other public platforms too. Is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
we're still supporting Ethereum too, but
okay.
we chose Hashgraph as an easy platform to accept because of its compatibility.
So let's talk about the roadmap. What's next for Ssagewise? When do you expect to make the SDK broadly available to the public? And is there any other top priorities for Ssagewise over the coming months?
So I think obviously like I said, we've launched a couple pieces of it. We're going to keep launching it in pieces until we kind of get to the full thing. The next release will probably some of our proof of intent tools that are a part of the SDK and some interesting applications of that we haven't really talked about a lot up to this point. So that's the next public release. In private, we will continue to work with our partners to test the beta version of the SDK. I think, the full version of the SDK later in the fall is probably a reasonable time frame for where we're at with that.
Great. I guess we'll be on the lookout for this. Well, Amy and Dan, this brings us to the end of our interview. I just want to start off by thanking you both for your time and also sharing your insights into Ssagewise and also the current landscape for smart contract development. Me personally, this is a project that I'm most interested in, considering the potential for the Ssagewise dispute resolution infrastructure may have in kind of further advancing the adoption of smart contracts especially amongst enterprises. I also know many of the folks in the community out there share the same thoughts, and I guess we're excited to hear your plans to also support Hedera Hashgraph. So I guess with all this being said, thank you both for your time, and good luck with everything. We hope to hear from you soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And finally, if you want to learn more about Sagewise, their products, and the team, be sure to check out their website at www.ssagewise.io. In addition, the team has slowly gained notoriety given their potential invaluable product to smart contract developers across many DLT platforms. This also includes a recent profile featured on TechCrunch, which you should go check out. I hope you found this video to be helpful, and be sure to leave a like. If you want to learn more about other projects developing on the Hedera Hashgraph platform or the Hedera Hashgraph ecosystem overall, be sure to subscribe to my channel, The Gossip Guy, where we gossip about the world powered by Hashgraph. With all this said, this is The Gossip Guy signing out. Thanks for watching.